Good morning. It is the 14th of December, 2024, and we are here to celebrate the reconstruction of the CHRS Radio Central building at 2152 Central Avenue. In probably around 2010, one of our dear members, Norman Leal, thought we should have a fund, a building fund. So, nice man that he was, gave us $75,000 to start our fund. Make a long story short, we were going to buy that building in Berkeley, and it didn't work, not our fault. And so everybody kept their pledges with us, and we found this building in Alameda. Now, when we bought the building, Norman always said he would make sure that we got this building. So he said, I will loan you what you need to get over the top and get the building. And it came time for that to happen, and I kept telling him, Norman, we can't pay you back on a regular basis. And he said, don't worry about it, we'll work it out. So in writing the check to me, I said, Norman, we can't pay you back on a regular basis. He says, it doesn't matter, you don't have to pay me back. So Norman gave us the $200,000 we needed to get over the top and purchase this building. It is a big deal for CHRS. It changes our whole complexion, our whole attitude, our whole plan of action, our future, that we have this place and no one will ever take us out of here. So we were supposed to have Norman's widow, Carol Leal, come here today to unveil the plaque. Unfortunately, Carol is ill, so we have Carol's brother, Tom Diaz, who was Norman's brother-in-law, and he will be unveiling the plaque. So if you come over here, and there's on the right corner, and let's get on the side so everybody can see it. Karen, can you back up a little? Anytime you would. So Norman would be very happy. He would be extremely happy.
Oh, no, $25, yeah. Yeah, no, I've already told her. Yeah. Behind us.
Welcome to our holiday party. It's great to see so many happy, smiling faces here. And I just want to say a few things. It's really like a dream come true to have this facade done. And it's so important to our situation and important to the community and important to our future. And we have wonderful contractors and volunteers and everybody that has helped on the project. I see our gardeners just came in, Paul and Edith. So I just want to thank everybody for that. The other thing I want to do here is that I'm going to ask some of you to do something for me. You all know who you are. Some of you are what we'd like to call regulars, the people that volunteer every Saturday or almost every Saturday, giving of their time for CHRS and then getting to, do their own thing. So everybody, let's have our regulars stand, including our gardeners. You guys know who you are. There's more than just Steve. Everybody. All you people that sort tubes and solder and test. And these are the people that make this place happen and work on a regular basis. And another one of the people responsible for what's going on is Dan Long. Raise your hand, Dan. Dan is our concrete contractor and built those wonderful stairs. So we've talked about the volunteers. We've talked a little bit about the front of the building. There's a couple of more things I want to talk about. I won't make it too long. As some of you know, yesterday the formal announcement was made by the President of the Broadcast Legends to their assembled group that the Broadcast Legends as a 501c7 registered social organization will be disbanding, and the Broadcast Legends in its entirety will now become a program of CHRS, just as the Bay Area Radio Museum and the Bay Area Hall of Fame and the Society of Wireless Pioneers. This brings us a whole new group of people, mainly from the broadcasting community, and we'll be putting on programs as they would have had them. Our first program for the Legends and for everybody here, I hope, will be in March, and that program is going to be a reprise of our Women in Broadcasting. It was a great thing we did last year, and we're going to do it again. We've renamed the building for Norman Leo, and there's something else we want to do. Mike Adams, who many of you know and loved and known for a long time, was our chairman for many years. Mike was a scholar, he was a teacher, he was a photographer, he was a writer, and he did so much. And to honor Mike, we are, and that's Mike up there with Philip, when Philip and Mike exchanged the title of chairman of the board. And so in honor of Mike, we'll be naming our library downstairs, which is the largest communication library west of the Mississippi, as the Mike Adams Communications Library, featuring the Jim Maxwell collection. And we'll get real signage made up, and this is a really nice way to honor Mike. Is anybody, while we're on Mike, we thank you, and I'm sorry that Mike's wife could not be here. They had other family arrangements. While we're kind of open mic here, does any of the old timers want to say a word regarding Mike? That we all know that we love him and we miss him, and we're going to go on to do other things. Right now, I'd like to present. Oh, and by the way, in honor of Mike, is a part of our video presentation after lunch. The last thing we'll see is Mike's presentation he did on his last book, which is The Radio Boys and Girls. And it's a great talk about this whole series of novels that was popular in the 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s. So I'm gonna say thank you, and it's been a pleasure to work on the building here. I'll tell you what's really left to go. We have a front fascia board. We have the side eaves to do, where we're gonna put up 18 more corbels. We have the terracotta roofing on our two towers, and that's about it. And Paul and Edith have been working very hard on beautifying the garden that they actually planted 5-6 years ago now, maybe. And we thank them so much for what they've done. And again, this place is nothing without the volunteers and our supporters. Our supporters have let us do this. Our supporters have let us turn this crummy old place, the way it was when we got it, into something that's very presentable, usable, and good for our future. And don't forget, he just walked in, which reminded me Don't forget to look at our displays, the ones that are pretty much completed from 1900 to 1920 is the first display down there. Denny Monticelli was basically responsible for setting that one up. The one we just finished is our 1920s display, and that's Peter Fraser back there. Raise your hand. And Peter was the one that conceived this and built out this exhibit with some help with fixtures and carpentry that I did. But it was all Peter's stuff, so be sure to check out that exhibit. I've talked long enough. I will now turn this over to our executive director, Rachel Lee, and all I can say is she's probably the best thing that's happened to this organization in many years. How's that for an introduction?
We all knew nothing would happen here without Steve, so thank you, Steve. Happy holidays. I wanted to broadcast everything we have done this past year, but they said I couldn't talk for that long. As we gather today, warmed by good food, shortly, and well-tuned company, it's time to reflect on another year of radio and communication-powered adventures. 2024 has been one for the books, which if you've seen our library is saying something. Radio Day by the Bay, once again we proved that old radios still have the power to transmit joy and net dollars. Our annual celebration here at Radio Central had everything. Dazzling radios, vendor booths, food, and the sweet sound of money raised for our mission. Thank you all to who made it happen, volunteers, donors, and those who merely wandered in for the ice cream and left with a surplus radio. Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame, we welcomed a stellar new class of inductees who reminded us why we love this medium so much. Our inductees showed that great voices and stories don't fade, they echo. Thanks to everyone who clapped, cheered, maybe teared up a little. It's okay, I did too. War of the Worlds. We turned back the clock to 1938 and invited people to experience War of the Worlds. No Martian landings in Alameda this time. But we did witness an invasion of curiosity and wonder. We'll call that a victory for Earth. Facade Adventures. Yes, this year we took the phrase rooting around in history quite literally by tackling the facade. With lots of elbow grease, some contractors, master gardeners, and a stump grinder, we made the facade of CHRS as inviting as the treasures inside. Museum Makeover Campaign. This year, we kicked off a major campaign to transform our great room into a professional museum space. If you've ever dreamed of seeing our radios, artifacts, and stories shine even brighter, we're getting there with your help. To those who donated, thank you. To those of you who have donated $1,000 or more to the Capital campaign, I have a limited edition CHRS mug as a thank you. To those considering it, you too can get one of these amazing mugs, designed by Bonnie Burnell while supplies last, so act now. The airwaves are still open. See Michael Toadman, raise your hand, or me. Community partnerships. CHRS has been out and about, building partnerships that keep us connected to our local community. Whether it was donating props to theaters, participating in the 4th of July parade, offering group tours and school field trips, participating in local outreach events and fairs, doing radio station partnerships and podcast interviews, or welcoming the city of Alameda to our holiday gathering, we've been busy making sure CHRS isn't just a museum, it's a hub. And let's not forget you. Our incredible volunteers, members, donors, and supporters who keep the spirit of electronic communication alive. From those who restored radios with Bluetooth finesse, to those of you who brought baked goods, arguably the true MVPs, we see you and we thank you. For those of you who have braved my new sign-in system, I have a gift of thanks up here with your name on it. Little snowmen, made, of course, out of radio tubes. Finally, each of you has a limited edition coaster to take home today as a small token of our gratitude and in celebration of this monumental 50-year landmark, also designed by Bonnie. So here's to another year of preserving, restoring, and celebrating communication history. May your tubes stay warm, your signals stay strong, and your holidays be filled with the kind of static-free joy only CHRS can deliver. Cheers to 2025. We're just getting warmed up. I will now pass it along to Philip. Chairman of the board, Philip Monego.
Thank you, Rachel. Happy holidays, all. Just a couple of quick comments. Unfortunately, I don't see Judy. She must be downstairs. Judy has shared with me year after year the word gratitude. And part of what's been expressed by Steve and Rachel this morning, and by me as well right now, is the gratitude that we all feel for the support of the membership, the volunteers, the organization, the building that we have over our heads, the future that we have, and how strongly we feel that from the board's perspective and from the members' perspective, how do we bring it forward? How do we guarantee that the next 50 years will be able to, the next generations will be able to look back and reflect on what we did? So I'll add just a couple of quick points. For those of you who read my letter from the chair in this most recent journal, I've asked you all to reflect on your estates, not just from a financial perspective. We enjoy the support. We wouldn't be here without that. And to think about your planning of those estates, but also the physical estates. I use the term hoarding in my letter, and respectfully, we all know exactly what that means. But honestly, some of us exerted more than a little energy this year because former members who left us left behind, and for their family and their relatives to take care of their collection without expressing in advance their wishes for that collection. The best thing you can do for your family and friends and for CHRS is to let us help you organize those collections going forward. So we know in advance, so everybody knows in advance exactly what your wishes may be, rather than us imagining, which we've had this year, a couple of cases where we had to imagine what they would wish for all concerned. And lastly then, going back to our capital campaign that is now underway. It is our aspiration this year to open up the museum to the public in a more formal way. As some of those of you who have been here on Saturdays know that there's a random entrance of people who have read about us or heard about us or what have you just coming in the door. We need to formalize that. And the best way for us to formalize that is not only with the funding for the exhibits, but also to get a more formal structure of management organization under Rachel, to have the volunteer organization in place, organized, and managing the docent process that we all know about in the museum community. So with your support, we intend to open it up to the public. And lastly, I'll just comment from the board perspective. Most of you do know this, but I am out on a recruiting drive to add to the board, quite honestly and candidly, not with people who look like me, but people who will demonstrate more diversity in our board. Our emphasis is going to be is always placed on bringing us some museum expertise, bringing us some education expertise, bringing us broadcast expertise into the board so that we can more properly represent the opportunities that we have today and for the future. So with all that said, thank you again for all your support. Much appreciated. Happy holidays. We're
We're going to hear from Jonathan Westerling, who is founder and president of Radio Sausalito. And while he's setting up his computer, for those of you who don't know, briefly, Jonathan's had a streaming jazz service for 12 years now, 20 years now. And Jonathan has recently set up a low power transmitter and antenna on top of our roof, and we are broadcasting the stream on 1570 low power here in Alameda. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's going to tell you all about it.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you so much for inviting Radio Sausalito to be part of this amazing museum and display of radios. I asked Steve after we got the antenna put on the roof if it would be okay to take some time during this particular moment of the year, because all the volunteers are here, and I really want to share a little bit more about this radio station, which you've allowed onto your rooftop to share with the people of Alameda. And what better format to do it than when we're all here in this wonderful new building with the beautiful new facade. So just a quick 10-minute tour of Radio Sausalito, our history, and then how everything works to actually get the audio here that's being heard on 1570 AM, at least on this half of the island. It doesn't quite cover all the way up to the Air Force, the old air base, but it has a fairly good signal in this general area, and so it came off very well, very, very good signal. So a little look behind the scenes at Radio Sausalito. We launched on March 4th of the year 2000, so we've now actually been 24 years on the air. We've been called the most successful Part 15 community station in history. Part 15 radio is very low-powered radio, so it's fractions of a watt, and the physics to make that small amount of power actually transmit for more than a couple of feet is something that I worked actually significantly with my engineers on to really make the most out of that little chunk of frequency that we get. So that's the type of radio station. There's several of them in the United States, but we've been called one of the most successful, and I'm very proud of that. And it's been a pleasure to use that, because here in San Francisco, obviously, if we wanted a real 50,000 watt license, not only are they not available, but they cost millions and millions and millions of dollars, which I don't have. And so we're doing the next best thing, which is starting something from scratch and making it work with the power that we've got. And I've been doing that since 2000. We're on the air 24 hours a day. I'm very proud of our 10 programs, which we produce in-house at Radio Sausalito. We do have some syndicated programming as well. And the rest of the day is filled with jazz, big band, blues, Latin jazz, and swing music. So if you like that kind of stuff, I hope you'll tune us in. We also do public service announcements, and for those of you who are here in the Alameda area, if you have nonprofits that would like their announcements made over Radio Sausalito, since we're on 1570 AM here, yes, let's bring that to all the Radio Sausalito listeners, including those who might be listening over the air here in Alameda. So do send us your public service announcements. It's a fantastic thing that we do throughout the year. Every hour we do at least 2 public service announcements, and when you add it up, it's quite a lot of them. And then we also, of course, play music, and it's 4,000 songs per month about that we play. Focus is, of course, on independent local artists whenever we can. And I'm very proud to say that the biggest by far budget item that we have at Radio Sausalito is paying the music royalty back to the musicians. So significantly larger than anything else that we have to pay for is that music licensing fee for the internet broadcasts and the over-the-air broadcast. But I'd like to think that most of that, hopefully, is getting back to the musicians whose music we play. So Radio Sausalito started with very humble beginnings. Literally on my closet floor. That was Radio Sausalito, a Macintosh computer, an Orban graphic equalizer, and the transmitter looked like that. That was my science fair project my senior year in high school. I built a radio transmitter in 1993, and I won a prize at the science fair, and then I put it in a box, and I didn't look at it through college until I ended up moving to Sausalito, and my parents took, as good parents do, they took all the stuff out of the basement, put it in a truck, and said, "Here, take all of this, because we don't want to see it again." And inside one of the boxes was this transmitter, and I got it. I was like, "Oh, this is really cool. I guess I should turn this on. That would be fun." And so I hooked it up to a computer that had some music on it, and I started playing music. Well, the next to me was the Rotary Housing Project, and I was playing jazz and stuff that I liked to listen to when I was around the house, and I just leave it on because, hey, cool, I'm Radio Sausalito, I thought. Well, they all had radios, and they started tuning in, and a couple of months later, there was an article in the local paper about this mysterious new radio station called Radio Sausalito. On the one hand, I was like, well, I guess I should start playing music that other people like as well. But also I realized, hey, that means there's a market for this. There's a need. There's people who want to listen to local radio, want to listen to jazz music, because at the time KCSM was only just in the South Bay. And so started, sort of asking for volunteers and having people literally come over to my house to do their shows. And then that's how sort of Radio Sausalito got started. A few years later, the community got interested, and I had some meetings with city council or whatever, and we were invited to transmit from the police station. And the thing to the left is actually the old Sausalito phone exchange. So that was kind of interesting. I'm glad it wasn't online at that point, because who knows, we would have had a lot of people listening to Radio Sausalito on their phones when they didn't want to hear Radio Sausalito. But anyway, so we got put in the city. We had a great relationship with the city of Sausalito all these years. And eventually by 2005, we got a real studio with a mixing board that I redid, modified myself, and we still have those speakers kicking around somewhere. But we got a real studio, and then in 2010, we moved because the police station got torn down, and we got a wonderful invitation from a family on the hill to build us a studio in their basement. And so we are in the basement of this house, which is obviously has this beautiful brickwork. And that mixing board that you see, a little bit of trivia, that's the old 1310K DIA transmit mixing board. That was from their studio. And when ABC bought that radio station, they donated the mixing board to Radio Sausalito, and so we used that for many years. It was a pain in the neck to keep up and operational with all the volunteers using it all the time, and had Penny and Giles faders, if you know what those are, those big long faders, and you have to clean those every couple of months so that they didn't get all scratchy when you turn the volume up and down. So that was a pain. So during the pandemic, we took advantage of the studio being closed, so we now have a more modern mixing board. But I wanted to show you, I got a random phone call about when we did the move to the new studio, and it was Don Sanchez, who you may know from ABC7. And you saw him yesterday, yes, he was at the event at the Basque Center. So Don calls me up and he said, hey, I'd like to do a piece on Radio Sausalito. I said, wow, cool. And this is what it looked like.
A low-powered radio station that started in the closet of the apartment of a Sausalito man has become a community favorite, and now it's getting bigger.
ABC 7 News arts and entertainment reporter Don Santos shows us the unique Radio Sausalito.
This is Radio Sausalito, 1610 AM in Southern Marin.
With jazz 24/7. And community shows.
This event is open to families and children of all ages.
One of the reasons Radio Sausalito exists is because I found that people want to be talked to as a community, as a community radio station. And they want to have a relationship with who they're hearing on the radio. It began 12 years ago when Jonathan Westerling installed a transmitter he made in high school in his Sausalito apartment. I put it on the air so I could hear jazz when I was in the kitchen in the other part of the apartment. Neighbors could pick it up too. A following quickly developed. Now there are 20 volunteers. Big band musician Joe Argo is the music director.
So we change our style over the course of the day.
Ruth Ann Spike and her daughter Emma do a show about New Orleans.
And here on Radio Sausalito's Gumbo, we're gonna celebrate.
We hope that you're gonna enjoy this tasty bit of music on Radio Sausalito's Gumbo.
There is a political show.
What I try to do is take some of these complicated issues and boil them down for busy people.
Mitchell Field does a showbiz show called Field Trip.
I do get a lot of feedback, especially from the theater community. They really like it.
The studios are now in the basement of a stunning hillside Victorian restored by a father and son. Gil Purcell Sr.'s apartment is next to the studio.
It's a miraculous relationship we have here.
But with low power, the audience is limited. And the signal is pretty much confined right here to Sausalito because the station operates on less than 1 watt of power. Some Bay Area radio stations have 50,000 watts. But Westerling has bigger dreams. But that relies on listener generosity. In Sausalito, Los Angeles, ABC 7 News.
So that came out pretty well, and we had a fun time getting everybody together. And you get to see, because of that video, you get to see a couple of good shots of the studio and stuff like that. And now we have expanded. We're on the internet, and we're on the rooftop here at CHRS, and that's the Radio Sausalito antenna and transmitter that's up on the rooftop that is sending 1570 AM to the local area and 24/7. And we're really very happy to be a part of this organization. And I want to tell you a little bit about it'll be a little bit technical, but I'll keep it short for those of you who aren't technical. But the Radio Sausalito audio network is maybe more than you would imagine in terms of just being able to put a radio station on the air. Even though we're a tiny little station, with only a couple thousand listeners, we do have a fairly significant network that we put together. And this is the Radio Sausalito network just for 1610. We have 2 automation systems that are running the music, and then that goes into what's called an audio router with silence detectors. A silence detector detects when there's no audio coming over, and when there's no audio, it flips to something else, because obviously if there's no audio, something's broken, right? So we flip to the backup or to other sources, and then it goes through a bunch of processors, because AM radio, as you know, has a particular sound to it. It's not very high fidelity, so we have to process the audio pretty heavily to get it to sound good on AM. Even here at 1570, we have our own processor. You'll see that in a second. So I added the internet stream in 2015, and we have separate audio processing for that, and our internet streaming server is actually in Illinois. So we process the audio, send it to Illinois, and then when you click to listen to Radio Sausalito on your phone, it actually connects to our servers in Illinois that sends the signal out, and there's a company that runs that for us and keeps us on the air with that signal. And then here's what we added for CHRS. A lot of things here. First, we've got a connection to the CHRS studio here in the back, which we plan to use next year to launch some kind of a weekly show on Radio Sausalito. That'll be very exciting, and some discussions that we're going to have here in the next couple of months. But you'll also see now we have a direct connection from Radio Sausalito in our studio down. We have our own signal processing and a silence detector with an emergency iPod. And so if there's some reason that the internet gets cut between Radio Sausalito and here, the silence detector clicks over and there's an iPod with hours and hours of programming and these station IDs so that we can continue to be on the air here as well. There's also battery backups and all sorts of other stuff. So that's a little bit, and a sneak preview for all of you. This is not public yet, but we are going to add 1570 in San Rafael next year as well. I'm actually going to pound the ground rods for that tomorrow morning, so that will be kind of fun. Now, we have secret audio signals on Radio Sausalito, and now because you're technical and interesting people and you're hosting Radio Sausalito, you get to know what these secret audio signals are. So if you hear a high-low beep between the songs, it sounds like that. So in between every song, you hear that high-low beep. That means that our main automation server is down and you're on the backup automation server. So if you ever hear that, it's maybe I'm doing work on the main one, or maybe it crashed or something, but that's a tiny little signal that you'll hear in between the songs that tells you what's going on. And if you hear a low-high signal, that means that you're on the emergency iPod in the basement, because that emergency iPod has that low-high signal in between every song. So if you're listening to 1570 here at CHRS or around in your cars, and you hear beep, then you know, there's an internet problem, and probably tell Steve to call me so we can figure out what's going on. And if you tune into Radio Sausalito on the internet and you hear this, that's a jazz standard called Sing, Sing, Sing. It starts with a big drum solo. Whenever you hear that, that means our internet stream is off the air, because that's the backup audio for our internet stream. So whenever I tune into Radio Sausalito and I hear that, I know I suddenly have to stop what I'm doing and go fix something that's broken. And the other song that you might sometimes hear on Radio Sausalito is this one, which is called All Morning Long. And whenever you hear that song, it means that we're almost at the end of our playlist, and some automation thing hasn't worked, because it's supposed to refresh the playlist every hour. And at the end of the playlist, at the very bottom, it plays that song. Why did I choose that song? Because it's 20 minutes long. So when that 20-minute song starts to play, it means something didn't happen and we're getting down towards the end of the playlist. And hopefully within 20 minutes, something will kick back in and fix it. So those are the secret audio signals for Radio Sausalito. And the last thing I'll show you before we head, I presume, to lunch, This is a new addition to our studio, and you'll see that beautiful radio there, which is on display from CHRS and on loan from you guys. And it's a beautiful addition to our studio, that 1938 radio. And it's hooked up and it tunes in and it plays beautifully. So a little remote display, just like museums share their artwork, you're sharing a radio with us. And so that works out very well. It's a two-way street.
It's not on loan, Jonathan.
Oh,
It belongs to Radio.
it belongs to Radio Sausalito. Thank you very much. Well, underneath it, you'll see I've got a plaque that says, on donation of CHRS, and so there's a little information about it as well. So we're promoting the museum for everyone who visits our studio as well. So thanks very much to everyone who there were a lot of volunteers who helped on the roof, Denny, John, anyone who helped Radio Sausalito get up on the roof. It was Steve, of course, a great effort. Really wonderful to be here. Obviously, it's working great. It stayed up last night in the wind, and so looking really good for being a permanent part of that new city of Alameda. The first AM radio station in Alameda in probably 80 years. So we did it. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it.
I don't think I've forgotten anything. I think the next order of business is for everybody to have lunch. It's all downstairs. Put your plates together and enjoy. And happy holidays to everyone. Take some time to look at our new exhibits and walk around the building and check out stuff you haven't seen before. And have a great time. And thank you everyone for your support.
Kind of what? As like off-market kind of situation. So, which is great. Yeah, I know.